And I just want to start with a photo I took a few days ago. You may actually realize what day it was because it's all yellow. It was the day where there was this big smog in New York City 10 days ago because of the fires from Canada. So it was a surrealistic day in New York City, but logistics activities were going on. And this photo is presenting a transshipment of parcels from one big company that I think we have in the room to their providers for the last mile deliveries. And what was really amazing was that there's many of these activities on the sidewalk in the city of New York, because what's going on is that this transshipment is not happening in a hub. It is happening in the city streets. So that's a very interesting development. It has been, it's new, right? To do directly on the sidewalk because they don't have enough hubs to do that, or because it goes quicker, or because it's more convenient. But there's a lot of volume that changes hands from the big trucks to the last mile providers. They could go walking, they could use bicycles or cargo cycles, or you could use small vans, but they are receiving on the sidewalk. So that's the point of transshipment of the parcel. So I really think that's a good introduction of our discussion today. And you have a title from the New York Post, which is a very local newspaper, about the city of New York that is trying to reorganize that sort of activity currently happening on the curb. I try to don't try to look at the content of the slide. Of course, it's not made for a quick presentation, but I did make in a recent article a definition of all the different warehouses, suburban ones and urban ones. And I identified specifically in this table two concepts of urban logistics hubs: the micro hubs, which are less than 1,000 square meters, and they are essentially places where you make that change from the big trucks to the last mile delivery operators of parcels, but it could be other things than parcels, obviously. But you do a quick change, we call that the cross-docking, or a quick transshipment of the goods from a vehicle that comes in from the outside of the city to the last mile delivery operators. So that would be the urban logistics hubs, the micro hubs, etc. And I also identified the logistics hotels, which is a slightly different concept with a mixed use component. We call that hotels because you have many different users. So it's not only logistics, it's mostly logistics, but you can also have all kinds of different activities going on, okay? It could be offices, or it could be sports facilities, or it could be anything that is happening in a city, but in the same building. And we'll have examples of that from Paris, actually. So other concepts are around in terms of urban warehouses. You have the dark stores, obviously, that have been very much talked about from the media, from the municipalities, which are the little warehouses where the new companies providing very fast grocery deliveries have been operating from. You have the urban consolidation centers, where there's an additional service of consolidating the final deliveries. So you get the supplies, the goods from very different operators, and then there's only one operator that makes the final delivery. So there's a consolidation sense in that urban consolidation center concept, etc. So you have all these different concepts, but basically Urban logistics hubs are warehouses in a city that have can be either small or big, that have very specific characteristics in terms of their architecture, because they are located in a city, and they provide a new service of delivering the goods for businesses, administrations, and people that are located in a city. Just recent trends about warehouses in general, suburban and urban. I have identified 3 main trends. A lot of them are vertical now, which means multi-story. So I think it's a very interesting new development because it saves land, right? And it's also a way of just being able to be accommodated in a city, because there's no other way to grow up in a city if you don't go vertical. The second one, the second trend is the reuse of existing facilities in a city. So it can be brownfields, or it can be the reuse of retail vacancies, or it can be the reuse of facilities that are no longer needed. And I'm thinking about gas stations, for example. In big cities like Paris or London, you don't need gas stations as much as you used to. These places can be reorganized and reused, and part of that reuse would be logistics. So these things are developing. In the example you see on the left side of the photo, it's the use of an empty space from below the ring road around Paris. Another interesting use of something that was not used before, or that has to be reused, empty space below a highway. So much innovation in terms of architecture. And the last trend would be the energy changes of the warehouses. So I purposely took a suburban warehouse in that photo on the right, but just to show you how fast it will be changing in terms of photovoltaic activities on the roof, with actually a little question about the vertical buildings, because if you have vertical warehouses, you have less opportunity for a solar panel on the roof in total, right? So it's also a little question we could ask ourselves. I have this interesting result from a research we did at the Logistics City Chair. And the map shows 2 cities in the southwest of Paris, just at the border of the city of Paris. These are Issy and Boulogne. And we did this research where we tried to locate the last mile hub, the final hub before the last mile delivery to people and activities, and where they are located around in the Paris region. So you have all the actual location of all the hubs that are serving these 2 cities. It happens that these 2 cities are very wealthy cities in the west of Paris. None of the hubs are actually located inside the territory of these 2 cities, which was a very interesting result of the research. They are all located in around the cities themselves, right? So they are using the other territories around them as providers of these last mile delivery services. So that was an interesting way. So depending on the territory where you are looking, you have very different organizations of these last mile warehouses where the final delivery is coming from. So that was an interesting information out there. Another interesting research result that we did a little bit a while ago was to compare CO2 emissions from 2 different locations of the final hub. So that's, again, the city of Paris in red. And that's an actual case of an actual big operator in France that was trying to decide on whether they would locate their final hub inside the city of Paris or in the suburban area on the west, as you can see on the left. They chose the right slide, the right picture. So they chose to locate inside the city of Paris. That was about 10 years ago, the decision. And so we participated in the CO2 assessment of that choice. They chose to locate inside. They pay higher rent, and it's more complicated because the building itself is a little bit more complicated to organize. They use the former parking facility to do that. But they saved a lot of CO2. So these are the actual numbers saved from, compared with the theoretical situation if they had located in the suburban area where they were first thought about locating. So they actually divided the CO2 emissions by 2. And it also gives us a general number of what an urban terminal for parcel operation, express parcel operation generates. It's about 5,000 parcels a day distributed for the western part of Paris. And that generates about 70 tons of CO2. That was before they changed the fleet to electric vans, actually. But it's really interesting to see that just the location of the final hub is very important, because if you're 20 kilometers away from the final destination, you generate a lot of vehicle kilometers from the vans. And if you're in the center of Paris, you generate much less vehicle kilometers from the vans. And you can also turn the vans into cargo bikes. So really that's the basic. But we have the numbers behind that. It's half of the CO2 emissions. And I think I will stop here. I have a few other slides, but yes, just one last, which is interesting because it will also introduce session 2. That's about the new formats of urban hubs. So these may be considered not urban warehouses at all, right? Because they don't look like warehouses. But on the left side, you have Auchan, which is a big retailer in France. And they have a partnership with Deliveroo. And the little place you see on the left is right in the middle of Paris. It's a very nice organization where you have the click and collect for this big retailer, usually located in big supermarkets on the outskirts. But in that case, they have their click and collect. And they have a rest area for the Deliveroo drivers. So they combine 2 activities within one very urban type of organization. So it can be called an urban hub, but it's also many other things, very new things that are being organized within this part of this building. And on the right side, you have GoPuff, which is a fast grocery delivery operation, dominant in the US. That's in New York. And you can see it looks like basically like a store. They also have partners with retailers. So they do some retailing, they do coffee, and they do click and collect, but they are also a warehouse where you pick up the grocery that is ordered online and you deliver it very quickly to people around in the neighborhood. So new formats.